All right, let's go live. How's it going, everybody? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from the studio here in Panama today. It's a beautiful, beautiful day outside, and I would rather be outside, but it's pretty windy. I did a live last night. If you missed it, I did a second live yesterday because I wanted to talk real quick about the threat that the FBI just announced to California from Iran, that Iran was planning to send drones in and strike the American homeland. And I just wanted to sort of dispel some of the myths about that and talk about it. And it's been pretty popular. So if you missed it, you might want to go watch that one. You can hear my take on whether or not we need to be worried about Iran striking the American homeland. Today, we got a whole bunch more to talk about, and something that you probably should be more worried about than Iran striking the governor's mansion in Sacramento, because, well, number one, Gavin Newsom. So, I mean, could we take up a collection and hire Iran to strike? I mean, I'm joking, but no, it's something you should definitely be more concerned about, and that is the possibility of oil spiking to levels that we've never seen before, and what that would do to the global economy. So we're going to be talking about that today, and we're going to be talking about the war in Lebanon, the war in Iran. Actually, Iran has been firing. Yesterday, Lebanon and Iran, or I'm sorry, Hezbollah, more precisely, and Iran did their first joint operation against Israel, where they coordinated strikes and fired missiles from Iran and Lebanon at the same time. About 200 missiles and 50 drones centering on Israel. One person was injured, or maybe two people were lightly injured, and other than that, no damage. So now there was a cluster munition that dropped today in Jerusalem, and this is pretty concerning. I mean, if Iran is now trying to hit the Al-Aqsa Mosque, hoping that will enrage Muslims around the world and get them to enter the war on the side of Iran, that's probably a miscalculation on their part. But there's a video here that was just shared on social media. It just happened. This is the scaffolding there is going up to the Dome of the Rock. This is just outside the city walls of the old city of Jerusalem. So that, oh, I'm sorry. No, I know what that is. That is that's the city of David right there. So that's the old city of Jerusalem is in the background beyond that red circle. Okay. The bomb fell in the road that separates the old city of Jerusalem from the city of David. So that's what we're looking at there. And I run on that road all the time when I'm in Israel. So hits pretty close to home. Actually, that's only about 2 blocks from the Airbnb or the condo that I rent when I'm in Israel. So that's the first time in this entire conflict since October 7th where a munition has fallen that close to the old city of Jerusalem. And obviously, if they were to blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's going to cause massive consternation. It's the second most important site in Islam. For that reason, they have pretty much studiously avoided striking Jerusalem up until now. But this, I think, is a measure of how desperate, truly desperate Iran is becoming. And we'll talk more about what else they're doing in just a moment. So before I get to that, I want to have a word from our sponsor real quick, the Wellness Company. Take a listen. Trigger a bigger internet meltdown than the word. You say it out loud and half the crowd in the room cheers while the other half looks at you like you just kicked a puppy or something. YouTube might just ban me for even saying it. Here's what most people don't know. About 80% of the world's ivermectin supply comes from China, the same country that sent Iran their most advanced air defense radars recently, and which then spontaneously combusted the first time a real stealth aircraft showed up. Cheap Chinese junk is not where you want your medicine coming from. So that's why the wellness company is now producing American-made ivermectin right in Florida. Tested, controlled, manufactured locally. Look, ivermectin's been prescribed for more than 30 years. It even won a Nobel Prize in medicine. And while researchers are still studying the potential anti-inflammatory and other applications, people need access to medicine that they can actually trust. So most pharmacies charge $5 a tablet for 12 milligrams or less. The wellness company offers an 18 milligram dose for just $3.50 with an 84 tablet 6-month supply at an unbeatable price. So support American medicine, not China's scam machine. Get yours at twc.health/hotzone and use code HOTZONE to save $30 plus free shipping. That's twc.health/hotzone, code HOTZONE. Free shipping, $30 off. Might not hurt to have some of that in your freezer, just in case. You know what I mean? All right, let's get back to our video. Okay, so thank you to our sponsor, TWC. It's not Brightcore, by the way, Mama Marissa. So you can take that one down if you don't mind. I don't think TWC would be real happy with that. So look, oil remains the most strategically important commodity right after coffee. No, I'm sorry, right before coffee. Oil is the number one globally traded commodity. Coffee is number two. And when oil prices go above $100 a barrel, the effects spread across transportation, food production, manufacturing, global trade. I mean, on and on and on. Historically, oil price spikes have caused recessions, inflation, geopolitical stability, but they have not managed to cause a global economic collapse. I want to talk about oil prices a little bit because Iran has decided that this is the hill it is willing to die on. They are going to close the Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, they struck 3 ships in the strait, in and around the Strait of Hormuz. One of them was the ship that I pointed out. I think I showed you the picture on yesterday's live. Let's see here. I've got it. Yeah, there it is. Here's the picture of it. This is a Thai ship that was struck probably with an unmanned surface vessel, USV. So these are essentially like a jet ski or a small speedboat or something like that, packed with explosives, GPS guided. So they're not suicide. They don't have a guy driving it. By and large, they're GPS guided. They give them the coordinate of the ship that they're trying to hit, and that thing goes out there and goes to that coordinate, and kablooey, blows up. Iran has apparently, they claim thousands of these. There was a video they put out. I don't know what I did with that video. I had it here. There was a video they put out of a bunch of these USVs underground yesterday in a tunnel somewhere. Here it is. I'll show it to you. Let's see. I'll send that over. Okay, so let me go get that. Stand by. There it is. Oh, okay. We got to take the TWC video off, Nathan, wherever that went. There it is. Okay, I don't know if you can remove them from the studio. Can you, Nate? No? Okay. All right. So here it is. This is a video of unmanned surface vehicles and missiles and stuff like that. Some of these are manned surface vehicles. I mean, if they have a machine gun on them, but this is Iran claiming to have all these mines and drones and things that can strike ships in the Gulf. This is their publicity video they put out yesterday. So that's obviously concerning. If they do have thousands of these. I talked about yesterday how we have not sunk the entire Iranian Navy. President Trump has talked about it. He keeps saying that we've sunk their Navy, but we haven't sunk the whole thing. We've sunk a little over 50 ships probably, but Iran has hundreds of ships and smaller boats in its arsenal, could possibly have thousands of vessels when you count unmanned surface vessels and things like that. And they don't need a specially designed mine layer ship to go put mines in the Strait of Hormuz. They could really roll them off of a jet ski or a speedboat or whatever. Now, this is something obviously the United States needs to get a handle on, and President Trump is doing his best to do so, to get a handle on this. But you can see here, they're showing they've got a lot of assets hidden underground in tunnels. Boy, they like their tunnels over there, don't they? And we'll have to see if they manage to stop the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if we pull up a map and look at Strait of Hormuz, it's about 29 miles, those nautical miles across. 29 nautical miles. That would be about 32, 33 statute miles at its narrowest point. And that is when you take into account the size of the why can't I delete that? When you take into account the size of the shipping lanes going through there, the shipping lanes going both directions take up about 6 miles of that. So that's as far as shipping goes, that's pretty narrow. That's very narrow. Iran, of course, controls, if we look on the map, we'll zoom out a little bit. Let's go to the map here. We zoom out. You look at how much of this coastline Iran controls, basically the whole thing. And so we are watching it as closely as we can, but we may not have the assets in the region to watch it closely enough that we can see every speedboat that takes off out of Iranian shores. Theoretically, they don't need to leave from a port. They could roll their speedboat into the water pretty much anywhere along there. And that means we got to have eyes on every inch of that coastline. And that is a tall order. That's a long coastline. So because of that, Iran was able to strike multiple vessels yesterday. There's an American tanker that was struck that made a massive fireball. I've got a video of it here. This is, I think, in the Gulf of Oman, if I'm not mistaken. That's an American ship, American-owned tanker. Not good. And so this makes 16 ships now that Iran has struck in the Strait of Hormuz or around the Strait of Hormuz. And that is driving the price of oil ever higher. So we saw it go up to 116 on Monday. Then it immediately dropped back down into the high 80s. It's been bouncing around 80, 90. Now it is, I believe, 97. I'll go look here. Oil price. 94 at the moment for WTI crude. Now, the highest price ever recorded for WTI crude is $147 a barrel. That was in July 2008 with the financial crisis and everything that happened back then. If you were to translate that into today's dollars, you're looking at $185, $190 a barrel. Okay, so we're not quite, we're half what the highest price ever recorded for oil is. And the world honestly can absorb $100 a barrel oil. We've had $100 barrel oil many times. And just some of those times I've if we want to look at the history of this, 1973 oil embargo, the Gulf states and Arab states decided to stop selling oil to the United States. We saw the price go from $3 a barrel to $12 a barrel. If you translate that into today's dollars, it went up to about $80 a barrel. For us back then in the 1970s, obviously that caused a big problem, global recession, fuel shortages, and that was the impetus for the creation of the strategic oil reserve that the United States has today. Then a few years later, 1979, when the Iranian Revolution took place and they took 52 American hostages, it was $15 a barrel before that happened, and it shot up to $39 a barrel. That would be about $150 a barrel in today's money. That obviously caused severe inflation, widespread fuel shortages, economic recession in Western nations, right? So that's the highest I think we've ever seen, was getting up there on a well, it like I said, it did get higher than that in 2008, but not for long. So that was bad. 1990 Gulf War started at $17 a barrel, peaked out at 36. That's 80, 85, as I said, per barrel. That was relatively short-lived because the supply disruptions ended very quickly. The 2008 commodity boom, and bust, that's where the peak price got to 147, which inflation adjusted is $185 to $190. That's the highest oil price ever recorded. Now, during the instability, I guess you'd call it, of the intifadas and things like that in the Middle East, the price ranged between $100 and $115 a barrel. And we swallowed that. Okay, that is in today's dollars, $135 to $150 a barrel. And we lived with that. That was, not fun, but we survived it. Humanity has a annoying habit, I think some people think, of actually muddling through these things. And I guess the message that I want to give you today, that I want you to understand out of this, is that there's a lot of doom and gloom floating around out there. There's a lot, of course, that sells newspapers, that sells, ads on TV. The more sensational you can make it, the better as far as advertisers are concerned. But I want to bring some reality to you. I want to punch into the numbers here and kind of give you some peace of mind, because yes, we could see a spike to $150 or $200 a barrel. And yes, that would cause some hardship in your pocketbook, but it's not something that's going to destroy the world. And it is something that it will likely be relatively short-lived, because in some sense, this war is a voluntary war on the part of the United States. The U.S. chose this time to do this. President Trump ascertained that this was necessary, and I agree with him on that. However, if the economic hardship gets too bad, President Trump can always just say, okay, we're going to stop right there and go home. And that's indeed something that I'm a little afraid he might actually do before winning the battle, and that would not be cool. But we'll just have to hope and pray that President Trump does the right thing and knows what the right thing is to do. Now, back in 2022, during the beginning of the war in Ukraine, the oil jumped up to $120 a barrel. That's like $150 a day, and then came right back down. But I want to talk about the economic effects of oil above $100. And after I talk about this. We're going to get into more of what's going on in Lebanon, in Israel, and in Iran itself. And I want you to stay tuned, because at the end, I scored an awesome interview with the former deputy commander of the Sayeret Matkal, which is Israel's version of Delta Force. And this guy is incredibly smart. He's been on a ton of covert missions before, and he kind of broke down for me what special operations might do in this conflict and whether or not they're going to be necessary. So you're going to want to stick around for that interview. I think really, really good interview, folks. So let's break down the economic effects of oil above $100, and then we'll get into the rest of the update on what's happening today. Okay. Now, first of all, oil is embedded in nearly every part of our global economy. So higher prices in oil translate to increased costs for airlines, trucking, shipping, logistics. Almost every consumer product becomes more expensive because the cost to get it to you goes up. Amazon delivering stuff, that gets more expensive for them, and those costs get passed on to you. Energy costs cause inflation in food prices, fertilizer prices, plastics, manufacturing. They add about half or up to 0.7 percentage points to global inflation, which doesn't sound like much, but it actually is. That's pretty significant. The developing countries get hit worse than we do. I mean, Americans, by and large, can handle a bit higher prices, and we're going to grumble about it for sure. Oh, I can't believe I had to pay $5 for a gallon of gas in California the other day. Whatever, but bottom line is, it's not going to make us go hungry. In places like India and Africa, and even some of Europe, those high prices can trigger currency crises, political unrest, food price spikes, as I said before. And so it's a much bigger deal for the developing countries than it is for the United States. Now, a lot of people say, well, that won't really affect the United States because the U.S. Is the world's largest producer of oil. And that is true. We are the largest producer of oil now by a lot. We produce about 30 million barrels a day. I'm sorry, not 30, 13 million barrels a day. The next largest, which is Russia, produces about 9 million barrels a day. So, we export oil, but the thing about that is it will still affect us because, number one, whatever oil we make, the people who produce that oil, who get it out of the ground, they're going to sell it at the global price. They're going to sell it to the highest bidder. And if the highest bidder is the ExxonMobil, refinery down the road from you, or if it's somebody in Singapore or whatever, they're going to sell it to whoever will pay the highest price. And the U.S. government is not about to go to Exxon and Mobil and say, sorry, you have to sell oil at lower prices in America and give up the more profits you could get by selling it overseas. You might think that'd be a cool thing for them to do. That's communism, or socialism at least, the government controlling the means of production. So I would be totally against that, even if I have to pay higher prices for gas. But we also import oil. So when you go to the gas station and you put gas in your car, somebody says, let's see if I can show this. You're completely wrong. We cannot handle more price increases. Do you not see how high the defaults are and people living paycheck to paycheck and credit cards maxed out? We are cooked. Well, Judge, I'm sorry if that's your situation. For most people in America, if you're careful with your money and work hard and live right, I believe you can make a pretty good living. A lot of people are on fixed incomes. I get that. And increase in the price of food is going to, hurt for sure. But I'm going to give you some concrete things you can do at the end of this that might help to reduce your costs or reduce the impact of an oil price spike on you. So stick around. Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you. I know there are people out there who are hurting already, and this is going to make it only worse on them. But we have a lot of safety nets here in the United States that they don't have in places like Africa and, India and places like that. So it is harder on them than it is on us. And again, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can reduce that impact on you in just a minute. So the United States, when you go fill your gas tank with oil, with gas, the oil that made that gas is not, I had to do some research on this, but I thought, well, maybe if you buy from this station, the oil is domestically produced. If you buy from that station, the oil is, brought in from Venezuela or something like that. And so then, well, let's pick the stations that use domestically produced gas and support American oil producers. But that's not how it works. The refineries mix oil together from various different sources. And so when you're putting gas in your car, that gas could be made from oil from all over the world, lots of different places. Because now, why would the United States export oil, but then import oil back into the United States? That doesn't make sense. Well, the refineries we have in the United States are calibrated to certain kinds of oil. And we have refineries that can't burn the light sweet crude that comes out of the United States, and they need heavier, dirtier oil to process, like from Venezuela and Canada and places like that. So yes, we are an exporter. We are the largest producer, but we also import oil, and all that oil gets mixed together before it gets refined into gasoline. So that goes into your car. Okay. So that's how that works. Just so you understand that, just understanding that will sort of dispel some of the normal objections you hear in a conversation like this. Now, would $100 oil cause a global collapse? No, it would not. The global economy has operated far above $100 per barrel several times. Sustained prices over $150 a barrel would pretty much guarantee a global recession, but we've survived recessions before. They're not fun, but we've done it. If you recall, folks, at the beginning of this year, in January, one of the first podcasts I did this year, I warned you, get ready. This year is going to be volatile. This year is going to have a lot of bad things come up, and it's going to cause financial hardship on you. You're going to want to prepare for that if you can. Okay, go back and look. In January, I warned you about this. So major supply disruptions, if the Strait of Hormuz, which again carries 20% of the world's energy, through there, stays closed for some time, and Iran is able to drive up the price of oil. Now, I really think, as an aside, Russia is calling Iran and going, hey, you really need to mind the Strait of Hormuz. Russia would love nothing more than for the Strait of Hormuz to get cut off, because 150 to 2, I mean, just the price increase we've seen so far since the 28th of February has made Russia almost $7 billion more than they would have made if the war hadn't happened. So Russia is loving this, and they would love to see, the higher the better. They would love to see the prices continue to go up. So that's obviously one of the reasons why they're providing targeting information for these ships to Iran. And the United States needs to do something about that. But right now, President Trump is listening to Steve Witless, and Steve Witless is saying, oh, no, I asked Russia if they were providing targeting information. They said they weren't, and we take them at their word. We believe they're trustworthy. What a moron, that guy. So $150 to $200 a barrel would likely trigger a global downturn in the economy. Now, if that were to happen, as I said, since this is a voluntary war on the part of President Trump, he could just stop the war and then prices would fall back pretty fast. We could see immediate reaction within hours of the war risk premiums getting removed by traders. Prices would fall probably $20 a barrel. In less than a month, you'd see shipping insurance rates go back to normal, tanker routes would normalize, markets would stabilize, and within 3 months max, the supply chains would adjust, refineries would rebalance their inventories, and we'd be back to normal. So this is why I don't believe we're going to see a sustained spike in the price of oil above $200 a barrel. Now, obviously, it's war. War is unpredictable. Thousands of things could happen tomorrow that none of us can plan for that could change that calculus completely. But looking at what we know right now, it's not likely that you're going to see $200 barrel of oil, which would translate to, $7 a gallon for gas or something like that. $7 a gallon for gas sounds really, really bad till you realize that people across Europe and much of the world pay at least that, if not more, and have for many years. And they've just adjusted and learned to work with it. They buy more efficient cars. They drive less. They take public transportation. That's stuff like that. That's a little more difficult for the United States because we don't have a great public transportation network, and the distances are larger in the United States to transport things. But there are, necessity is the mother of invention. And if the price were to go up to $200 a barrel, you'd see massive impetus to find ways to save energy and offset that. That's what human beings do. So as I said, the United States doesn't fully benefit from the fact that they produce the most oil because they're not only selling it in the United States, and the prices are what the prices are, and they're set by the global demand, not by the demand in the United States. All right. So if oil reaches $200 a barrel, you're going to see major inflation, airline disruptions, shipping disruptions, pressure on our economies, that sort of thing. But here are some practical ways you can reduce your exposure to that if that were to happen. Obviously, driving less immediately lowers your exposure to oil price spikes. So your options are carpooling, combining trips, putting off long road trips that are, not necessary. Work remotely with it whenever possible. If you're still in the working pool, if you're not retired and you're not working remotely, you should be maybe thinking about ways and maybe approach your boss and make yourself look good by, being proactive on this and saying, hey, just in case oil goes over $200 a barrel and things get out of control, could we talk about maybe some ways that we could work from home to save on fuel costs? Even modest reductions in your driving can significantly reduce your household fuel spending. So for example, if you travel 15,000 miles a year and your vehicle gets 20 miles to the gallon, you're going to burn 750 gallons of gas. If you double that to 40 miles a gallon by getting a more efficient vehicle, you cut your oil consumption or your gas consumption to 375 gallons for the year. And that at $6 a gallon, the difference equals $2,250 a year in savings. I think a lot of people will be buying e-bikes and stuff if the price gets up there. That's what we saw back in the 1970s, is a lot of people bought motorcycles. Obviously, you can work to improve the energy efficiency of your home. If you've got an old furnace, it might be worth it to invest some of your savings in a heat pump instead of an old oil burning furnace. Get some more energy efficient appliances. Go around and unplug stuff that you don't need. Okay. Little things like that actually add up and will make a difference. Now, one thing that I could do would be to reduce my air travel. Fortunately for me, I don't always have to pay for my air travel. I do much of the time, but I don't always. So having a remote meeting instead of flying to a meeting somewhere could be what the kind of choices that your company is going to need to make just until the crisis passes. And believe me, folks, this too shall pass. Now, if we're not there yet, and you do have a little bit of cushion, a little bit of margin in your monthly paycheck, now might be the time to start reducing your debt, buying up things like if you've been putting off getting new tires, the price of tires, which depends heavily on the price of petroleum, is going to go up. Go get your tires now. Put new tires on your car. Stock up on things that if you think the prices are going to go up, go buy them now. Find ways to consolidate and reduce and that sort of thing. Look, our ancestors went through the Great Depression. $200 a barrel oil is not going to create another Great Depression. It certainly could cause a recession. It would. But if our ancestors made it through the Great Depression, we ought to be okay going through a recession. And that I warned you in January. I said there'll likely be a recession this year. So let's move on from that and now just go into what's happening in Israel. So as I said, Lebanon, or the Hezbollah and Iran, made a coordinated strike on Israel yesterday. More than 200 missiles and 50 drones all at once. Most of those missiles, almost all of them, actually more than 150 of them, came from Lebanon. They did not come from Iran. Iran is down to firing in the single digits on each salvo now. And every time they do, they lose more of their launchers. Remember, Scott Ritter said, no, they still have all their launchers. And they're just waiting. They're letting themselves getting pulverized into dust until Israel runs out of steam. And then they're going to really strike Israel. Well, here is some of their inflatable decoy launchers that Scott Ritter was talking about going up in flames yesterday. This is from CENTCOM putting it out. Now, that kind of a fireball is not from the munition that struck that launcher. It's from the munition plus the explosives that sympathetically detonate when the launcher goes off. So, yeah, there's that. Now, on top of that, Israel said that, like I said, 2 people were injured in that massive attack. The vast majority of the munitions were shot down or malfunctioned or never made it into Israeli airspace or whatever. And think about that. Hezbollah and Iran doing their worst against Israel. And Israel just kind of, I mean, yeah, a couple people injured. That's bad. But they'll survive. A little bit of damage. They'll fix that. It's not moving the barrel militarily at all, or I'm sorry, moving the dial. Now, what a lot of the naysayers will say is that, Israel just doesn't allow anybody to put out to show how much damage there really is inside the country. Well, I showed you earlier that video from the old city of Jerusalem of the, cluster munition hitting right there. So that came out here the day before. Hezbollah managed to fire a missile and strike an Israeli radar site. The video is out of that. I have a video of it. This is recorded by a traffic camera. You see the radar site coming up on the right here of the road, and listen to the scream. I probably would have screamed like that if that thing had gone off that close to me. But so they are showing the damage, and Israel admitted when their radar site got hit that, yeah, we lost some connectivity there. That damaged it. So I think you can trust the word that's coming out of Israel, 9 million people there. If they say, there was very little damage and only a couple people injured, they're telling the truth. Now, Iran, one last thing. I wanted to point this out the other day and I forgot to do it, so I'm going to air it now. In an interview with Fox News, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said specifically, directly, this is a religious war. It's a religious war because Iran made it so. And that's significant. So I want you to listen.
Radical Islamic movements in the world identify the West writ large, but the United States in particular, as the greatest evil on the earth. And every chance they have, the notion that somehow radical Islam would be comfortable with simply controlling some province in Iraq or Syria is just not borne out by history. Radical Islam has shown that their desire is not simply to occupy one part of the world and be happy with their own little caliphate. They want to expand. It's revolutionary in its nature. It seeks to expand and control more territories and more people. And radical Islam has designs openly on the West, on the United States, on Europe. We've seen that progress there as well. And they are prepared to conduct acts of terrorism. In the case of Iran, nation-state actions, assassinations, murders, you name it, whatever it takes for them to gain their influence and ultimately their domination of different cultures and societies. That's a clear and imminent threat to the world and to the broader West, but especially to the United States, who they identify as the chief source of evil on the planet. Okay, the reason why they hate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the leadership of the UAE, of Bahrain, is because they've allowed the United States to partner with them. That's why they hate them. They consider them infidels for it. They hate Israel. But they also hate America, and they hate anywhere in the world that we have influence. They seek to attack it, including here in the homeland. If you look at the domestic terrorists, at the attacks that have happened here domestically, the overwhelming majority of them have been inspired by radical Islamic viewpoints. And that includes the shooting in the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. That includes the Saudi pilot in Pensacola, my home state, 2 attacks.
So he's making the point that, look, this is something we've got to do because these people are not going to stop. And so we've got to remove their ability to threaten us. You see this, it looks like in the government, the Trump administration is trying really hard to convince the American people that this is worth doing. I happen to agree with them. I happen to think that that's the truth. It is worth doing. And President Trump, I showed this on last night's live. President Trump, this is him trying to convince people at a rally he spoke at yesterday, like, we do need to finish the job, right? We're not, and take a listen.
We got to finish the job, right? Over the past 11 days, our military has virtually destroyed Iran. Tough country.
Tough country. So President Trump is making that case, but he's also saying, look, we're running out of targets and there may not be anything left to bomb over there. So the war must be about over. So he's just going to say what he's going to say. And I think that it's better, if you want to try to ascertain how long this is going to last, to just look at the evidence. Okay. So the big question is, what about the nuclear fissile material that Iran has, the highly enriched uranium? As we've said before, they've got almost 460 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. That takes like less than 2 weeks to turn into a nuclear bomb. And that's enough to make like 11 bombs out of. Then they've got a grand total of 5,200 kilograms of enriched uranium that's enriched above what's necessary for industrial or commercial use. And so they have a lot more than that. So this is stuff we need to track down and we need to eliminate or take out. So the question is, how do we do that? Because you can't bomb that stuff out of existence. We've got to take it away from them somehow. And that's going to require boots on the ground. So obviously you're talking about special operations forces. And to talk about special operations forces, I want to show you this interview that I got, the great interview. You're going to love this interview. And matter of fact, I'm going to have him on again very soon and do an entire podcast with him, because he's got some amazing things to say about artificial intelligence and everything like that. So take a listen to this interview with the former deputy commander. Okay, I'm here with Doron Kempel, and he is a former deputy commander of the Sayeret Matkal, which is essentially Israel's version of Delta Force. So he's been on all sorts of covert missions and can speak to what the role of special operations is in this current conflict. So Doron, thank you for being with us. You're now the CEO of an artificial intelligence personal protection company called Bond. But going back to your experience in the military, how would you say the special operations community, both Israeli and American, can be best used in this conflict?
Thank you for having me, Chuck. So let's clarify for the audience, there are two types of special operations. There are special operations that are undercover. That means that when you appear at the door, you're the milkman. And there are special operations that are clandestine, but when you arrive at the door, you're wearing uniform. The type of special operations that are active in Iran up to the war and during the war are still undercover special operations. That means that there are people on the ground. I'm a US citizen, so when I say ours, I mean ours, American and Israelis. They could be versions of the CIA, Mossad, and they could be military forces that know how to operate undercover. All of that has been going on for years, establishing the surveillance infrastructures in order to be able to know, now cutting to the strategic aim of the war, in order to eliminate the governing party in the IRGC, you need to know where the leaders are. It's not a coincidence that a missile enters the window when it does. That means that the level of intel that you have that is gathered by these undercover special operations unit of various military branches give information to the planes in the air at the level of person X in building Y in room Z, 4 minutes. And then the plane turns, releases the munition that enters through the window. That's how you get that level of precision. Now, in the beginning of the war is level of precision that was established when most of the targets were operating, let's call it in a relaxed environment. Now the environment is not relaxed, and we're getting to the second tier of targets. We're not looking for number one, the premier leader. We're looking for his son. And his son is probably hiding in some room somewhere, and he's trying not to be very vocal from a radio perspective. But cutting back to your question, Chuck, what the undercover special operations do across the gamut of capabilities from CIA through Mossad and military is be on the ground. So when we say there are no boots on the ground, they're not uniform wear, but our people are on the ground collecting information and delivering precision data to planes and other munitions to hit the leaders that we're after.
Okay, I see. So we're now to the not covert, but we're more overt special operations happening inside Iran. What do you think it's going to take for what would that mission look like if it was your job to go in and get, let's say, the fissile material, the highly enriched uranium that they have hidden underground?
Okay, so now we're moving to a different type of mission. Up until now, I was talking about hitting the leaders, which is about knowing, listening, seeing where they are, and directing the planes to hit them. Now we're talking about assuming that we know where the uranium is. How do we get it out? This becomes more complicated because now you need larger forces. You need to probably secure the area in order to protect our people. They need to be armed in order to break through whatever defense systems an enemy is there, and collect it and take it out of there. So you need to think about it holistically in terms of how you get there, how you break in, how you take all the uranium out and safely out of the area. But it all starts with having intel on where they are, what's the surrounding defense perimeter, and how do you break in. But you need to do it probably with special forces like SEALs or Delta, probably the need to be support of airplanes and maybe even helicopters like Apaches, just in order to give them very close support. But that's a much more complicated mission and a much greater level of risk to the forces on the ground than everything that we've discussed up until now, Chuck.
Okay, I want to break in here for a second and talk about that point, because there is new imagery out recently that shows that the Iranians are trying to get into some of the nuclear facilities that we bombed back in the 12-day war in June. I have a video here that just show. Oh, wait, I got to take Daron down. Let's see. Let's try it again. Okay, so this is Isfahan, and there's a tunnel there, and you can see over a 2-week period or 3-week period how these dirt mounds are piling up over here to the left of the tunnel. That means that they're trying to dig out those tunnels. You can still see the strike points where we collapsed those tunnels there. So they're trying to dig them out. Now, the reason that that's important is that if the United States and Israel were to send troops in there on the ground to Isfahan, let's say that we believe that's where the enriched uranium is, we don't know necessarily whether or not the Iranians have actually made it into the area that was collapsed. So they might be another 2 weeks away of digging. You know, we don't know how much more digging they have to do. So if we show up on the ground with a big, Delta Force or somebody shows up in there, you better give them shovels, because they're not getting in. We got to somehow get in. So this just adds another level of complexity to the whole problem. And I just wanted to point that out. Now let's keep listening to Daron. I think all of my viewers are asking, how in the world did the Mossad get so good at doing this? The undercover, covert stuff that led to them having the target packages they needed when the war started.
Right. So at the most abstract level, we all watch sports. In order to be good at football or basketball, you need to play. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example of who hasn't been playing until the war started. The Russians. They have not been playing. They started the war with Ukraine, and Putin assumed that he has a military that probably has the capacity of the United States. No, their military is 1970s. The US military that we see now unleashing hell in Iran is at a completely different level. So point number one is you need to be playing all the time. So the Mossad, the CIA, all the intel organizations, they play in between the wars. So they're very sharp at what they're doing. Number two, if you're Mossad and you're Israeli, you pretty much assume that you don't have a choice, right? We never want to put our enemies with their backs against the wall. Israelis, Mossad, they feel that their backs are against the wall. That means that people who maybe, had they been in our country, in the United States, would have been in Wall Street, are going to the Mossad. And now they're spending all of their time, and the country gives them all the resources that they need in order to establish infrastructures. Infrastructure, of course, human infrastructures, getting other people to play for us, give us secrets, establish infrastructure that is electronic. And when you think about, for instance, the president of Iran, right? The president of Iran a few years ago was in a helicopter. The helicopter fell out of the sky. How did that happen? I haven't heard anybody talk about that. Then the head of Hamas, the political leader of Hamas, came there for the funeral and went to stay in a certain room, in a certain building where he typically stays. And you need to ask yourself, is all of this a coincidence, or somebody was scripting all of that and years in advance was planning how the plane falls, the helicopter, how this president or how this leader of Hamas gets into this room and what happens then. So it's all about playing on an ongoing basis, understanding that your life depends on it, and investing years of infrastructures with no limitations and taking great risks. By the way, Mossad, CIA, these are excellent organizations. That's what they do on a daily basis.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. In 60 seconds, can you just give us a quick rundown on what your company does? Because you're involved in this AI company now, and that's very interesting.
Sure. So the idea is that all of us, our loved ones, our children, our parents, our employees, our students, Routinely, they find themselves in situations that make them feel uncomfortable and sometimes unsafe. They walk alone at night, they find themselves alone with strangers, or they worry about their children. In all those situations, they're constantly in this phase where they say it's too early to dial 911. I'm not an emergency. But if it turns out to be an emergency, so I'm in a parking garage, my name is Lisa, and I notice that the wrong person is approaching me, that's typically too late to complete the 911 call. What we have done is we've established a new tier of pre-911 service that allows everybody, via an app that we've created with 15 services, to have us look after them before it's an emergency. So you click on the button, within 5 seconds, a bond agent on video on your phone. He is your agent, he takes care of you, he can deter. So basically, we deliver that on a scalable basis, and I'm happy to say, Chuck, that the largest companies in the world have been buying that for all of their employees, not only the executives, but also the store employees, drivers, etc. That's what we do.
That's amazing. Amazing. Well, we'll have to talk more about that. I'd love to have you on again. Thank you, Doron, for coming on and explaining all this to us. I appreciate you and the work that you do, and we'll see you again soon.
Chuck, thank you for everything that you have been doing in uniform and not without uniform.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
You're muted, Dad.
Thank you. Stupid in a no stupid zone there. I just was saying that I'm going to definitely have him on again because you're going to want to hear more from Doron without a doubt. Now, I just do the no sound thing so that everybody will post in the chat right away, and that boosts the algorithm, believe it or not. Yeah, no, I was just I forgot I was muted. Now, in retaliation for the strikes that Hezbollah and Iran made yesterday, Israel was essentially dismantling the Dahia neighborhood of Beirut. I want you to see this because this is remarkable. Look at this bombing. Air defense firing up into the sky.
أطلقها جيش الاحتلال الإسرائيلي على الضاحية الجنوبية لبيروت.
Look at all the smoke clouds that are rising up there around Beirut last night. We had on yesterday's podcast my friend Nadim Costa, who is there in Beirut. And one thing that you don't see on this video, because this is actually zoomed in from a vertically shot video, is that down in the foreground, in the bottom of the screen, there's a rooftop bar, and there's a bunch of people smoking their shisha and drinking coffee and watching the fireworks out there, watching Beirut get blown up. Now, why would they do that? Why would they not be running for the exits and trying to get out of Beirut as fast as they can? Well, one reason, because they know that the Israelis are not targeting them. They know that the Israelis are targeting Hezbollah, the bad guys, and they're just there for the show. That is, I think, very important to point out, because so many people are like, try to pretend that Israel is the bad guy here. Well, if Israel is a bad guy, everybody would be leaving Beirut, and that's not happening. Okay, so let's get to our questions. We just at an hour, so we're a little late. Question number one: what role, if at all, does China and North Korea have in supporting Iran against Israel and America? Well, China gave a lot of weapons to Iran. They all failed. And so China kind of has egg on its face now about that. China has been condemning the attacks on Iran. Of course, North Korea is kind of a vassal of China in a lot of ways. And they're doing their own thing up there, threatening South Korea all the time by firing missiles. And North Korea is the poster child for why Iran can't have nuclear weapons. Because since North Korea has nuclear weapons, at least we believe they do, we couldn't do this to them. If we decided that they were too much of a threat to their neighbors or to the United States, and we wanted to go in and do a decapitation strike and take out, well, you just can't do that to a nuclear power. And that's part of the reason why they wanted nuclear weapons to begin with. So that's why we don't want Iran, as the largest state sponsor of terror in the world, to have nuclear weapons. Next. Should Israel send Abbas away to end this West Bank nonsense? Abbas isn't even liked by the other Palestinians in Judea and Samaria. He's not really liked by much of anybody. So I don't know that that would end the nonsense in the West Bank areas for sure. Next, why do you live in Panama as opposed to the USA? For a lot of reasons. One of them is that this thing called winter. My wife kind of absolutely hates being cold. And we live up in the mountains up here where it's nice and warm all year round. And it's not hot. It's just springtime temperatures. So that's one reason. Another reason is the taxes are a lot lower. I pay a lot less in taxes by living here. And I'm not actually here all that much. If you track it, I'm only home maybe 2 months out of the year. I've only been in my own bed for less than 2 weeks out of this year so far. So it's a nice place. It's a safe place. It's a less expensive place. And I was telling somebody yesterday, one of the great things about living in Panama is that I don't have to do anything that's not profitable or therapeutic for me. Anything that's not profitable or therapeutic, I can farm off on somebody else cheap. So somebody needed a ride to the airport. That's a 4-hour round trip today. So friends of ours that were here. If I take him to the airport, then I just gave up half my day. But we have a driver. And so we can pay him and he takes him to the airport. And thank you very much. I don't have to think about caring for my house because we have a chief of staff who manages the house and makes sure that everything gets taken care of and that the animals get fed and when we're not here and that the leaky faucets get fixed and things get painted and all that. I don't have to worry about all that kind of maintenance anymore. And it's definitely worth it to me for that. Now, next. How concerning is it that Iran can still coordinate with Hezbollah after all the strikes on command and control nodes? We've heard messages coming out of Iran on shortwave and other methods that are coded that are likely that's likely them communicating with each other. We should definitely try to put a stop to that communication, but they're still able to communicate. Why is the U.S. Navy not escorting ships through the strait? I saw a blurb on Fox News this morning. We're refusing to do so. Yeah, I saw that too. And I don't know. I don't understand because President Trump said if we need to escort them through the straits, we will. But now the Navy's saying, no, we're not going to do that. So I'm not sure. Sal Mercogliano would be the guy to ask about that. And look, if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. Next. Can you give us a super quick update on what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, even how the Iranian war is affecting that conflict? Well, it's affecting the conflict in that it's giving Russia a lot more money to pay for the war. So that's bad. Ukraine, because Starlink got shut off, has been just taking it to Russia and has been reclaiming territory on their front lines. So that's good. They're out of the worst of the winter now. So the strikes on their power infrastructure are not going to have the effect that Russia hoped that they would have. As I said, when I went there in November, I reported, look, Russia is trying to bomb Ukrainians into the dark and by that break their will. It's not going to work. Everybody's got a generator and the Ukrainians are incredibly resilient. And this is only stealing their will to keep fighting. They understand how bad it would be if they gave up. So that's my quick summary. If it took years to clear Gaza tunnels, how can we deal with Iran tunnels? I think you can't. In large part, they've been digging. Look, the topography in Iran is so extreme. We were just down on the border with Armenia and Iran. You look across at those Zagros mountains in there, and it's like it's unbelievable. and they just dig into the bottom of those mountains. They can go miles underground, and there's no way you could collapse all those tunnels. The most you can hope for is to collapse the entrances to the tunnels. And as we've seen today, Iran can then dig them out again. So that's a problem. Next. Yeah, there's the them digging them out. You got to play the video though. Okay, next. Can our satellites see how deep the regime's tunnels are? No, we can't. We can see the entrances, but that's about it. But we could guess. I mean, you could look at the height of the mountain and say, well, it's an 11,000 foot mountain. The tunnel entrance is at 3,500 feet. Do the math, right? Next. What happened? Let's pass on that one. Isn't France sending some ships? Yes, the French are sending some troops to the region to support the Arab states that are allies of theirs. Next. Aren't we all independent? Why does it affect our oil pricing? As I said, yeah, that's a common question. I've been getting that for the last couple of days, and I already answered it, but I'll answer it again. That the oil producers in America are private companies. They're not the government. And so they are going to sell oil at the going rate. And the going rate is set globally, not in the United States. And the government is not going to force them to sell it to you cheaper than they can get on the open market. That's just not how capitalism works. If you really want some place where the government controls the price of oil and tells the producers what they have to sell it for, go to Iran or go to Venezuela, because those are two places where that happens. Will the rising oil price create a new shale oil boom? Likely. It makes it more likely that oil that was too expensive to get out of the ground before would get taken out of the ground, and it would create a shale oil boom. What's the end of the Strait of Hormuz? What is at the end of the Strait of Hormuz? Looks like just dead ends in Kuwait. Dead ends in Kuwait and Iraq. Basra is a massive, all the oil that gets pumped out of Kuwait and Iraq comes down to the Strait of Hormuz and then goes out by ship. And they are some of the largest oil producers on the planet. So that's why. Also, Saudi Arabia, right there, they pump a lot of their oil through the Strait of Hormuz, and so on and so forth. So that's what's there. Next. Can we not utilize Venezuelan oil to help with the price? That wouldn't that would make the price go up. We could stop using any Venezuelan oil, and that would make prices go up. So that's not helpful. Does anyone know how I can get on the list for the next Panama tour? Yes, you can become a supporter over at chuckholton.com, and then you'll get first dibs on our next tour. We haven't announced the dates yet, but we will do another tour to Panama. And we do have one room available for our trip to Armenia because we had a cancellation. So if you'd like to join us in Armenia, send an email to info@holtonnews.com, and you can get more information on that. Next. Are we still getting oil from Iran, oil from Venezuela, and what has been happening there since Maduro was captured? I haven't heard much on mainstream media about it. So Delcy Rodriguez is still running the country. That means that things are still bad for the Venezuelan people. We didn't fix the problem. We took out Alibaba and left the 40 thieves. However, Delcy, not wanting to have the same thing happen to her, has worked with the Trump administration, and the Trump administration is overseeing the sale of Venezuelan oil on the open market at market prices, and then that money goes back to Venezuela. So Venezuela is profiting from that by playing ball with the Trump administration, but we didn't fix the problem. Next. What would victory look like in your opinion? Regime change. Reza Pahlavi installed as the new leader of Iran. That would be victory. Hey, Chuck, with all your military experience, etc., would you ever consider working for the U.S. government as a military advisor? I don't think they could afford me, but I certainly would. I mean, I have given advice to the U.S. government in the past. I have worked with them in the past as a subcontractor. And I get calls from time to time from Congress people and stuff who ask me for my opinion on things as they're sitting in congressional hearings and they want to look smart about whatever the topic is. So they call me. Next. Are there not alternate routes for these oil shipments, which, while more expensive, might be alternative to the Strait of Hormuz temporarily? There is one, and that is a pipeline. No, two pipelines, one that goes across Saudi Arabia to the Red Sea and one that goes around the Strait of Hormuz through the UAE. The one in the UAE has been bombed, and so it's shut down. But the one going through Saudi Arabia is cranking up to full capacity, and it's now shipping about 7 million barrels a day out through the Red Sea and just, avoiding the Strait of Hormuz altogether. Next, do you still use Starlink when traveling? Yes, I do, all the time, and I use it everywhere. It's great. I was using it down at the beach yesterday or the day before. Are you familiar with the suppressed technologies to run cars off of hydrogen? I am familiar with them to some extent. I have read about that. I don't think we need to pursue too much alternatives to fossil fuel because, believe it or not, there is plenty of fossil fuel out there. If we stopped looking for more today and we just went by proven reserves of petroleum that exist in the world today that have not been taken out of the ground yet, we kept using oil at the same rate we are now globally, we have enough oil in the ground to last us about 3,000 years. So I don't think we need to be, trying to switch over to hydrogen just yet. Next. Why isn't the Western world going and protects the Strait and oil shipments like all of Europe, Australia, and Canadians? That's very expensive for them. They don't get a lot of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz. Europe gets a little bit, but not much. And so it's not in their national interest to do so. That's the answer to that question. Is it true no ships have taken Trump up on the insurance offer to pass through the Strait with Navy escort? Apparently, we're refusing to escort. We've had a lot of requests to escort ships, but we're refusing to do it. I'm not sure why. And I think it might take them a little bit to figure out the whole insurance thing, so they're not quite selling it. They're not to the point yet where they're selling it. What if Iran does not open the Strait after we pull back? Iran doesn't get to close the Strait unless they can do it militarily. It's not like they have a gate. So if we decimate Iran to the point where they cannot threaten the Strait, then they won't be able to. Next. Is the military-industrial complex a necessary evil, or could the U.S. government create its own manufacturing and production capabilities? There's a very good video about that on YouTube over on Ryan Macbeth's channel. Ryan Macbeth is a great analyst on this, and he points out something very important. The military-industrial complex doesn't exist anymore. It's actually not a thing. The way that they have structured their procurement now kind of did away with the military-industrial complex. So if you're just talking about there are companies in the world who make money when there's a war, well, I mean, yeah, there's tons of those, but those companies don't have much sway over whether or not a war happens. And I don't like these conspiracy theories that try to say there's this evil cabal of businessmen in America in the military industrial complex that is starting all these wars all around the world. And, it's just so they can make money. Like it's evil to make money. It's not evil to make money. It's not evil to have a business. It's not evil to provide the government with things they need. And these guys might be powerful, guys like Elon Musk, but they're not powerful enough to start a war. It'd be nice if they were powerful enough to stop one, and Musk has done his best on the Ukrainian front with that, but it still hasn't worked. So there you go. Thank you for being a new member. Rad for real. Perhaps a good time to start buying American. Tariffs don't affect domestically produced items. Okay, good point. Could you see Iran using decoys? Trucks are cheaper than launchers. They do have decoys. We know they have some decoys. The thing is, when you hit a decoy, it doesn't have a massive secondary explosion. So we can tell if we hit it and nothing happens, then okay, that was a decoy. We know they have some, but we also have ways, I believe, of determining whether or not it's a decoy that we won't get into. Do you think that's why Iran moved assets to Hezbollah? Oh, well, Iran moved assets to Hezbollah because that's been their military strategy all along, was to get their little brothers to do their fighting for them rather than they themselves going up against Israel, because on some level they knew that if a war started between Israel and Iran, that Iran would lose. They knew it. Was our Delta Force captured by Iran? No, it was not. I showed a picture the other day of that, the Delta Force operators that Iran put out a photograph that they claimed was a bunch of captured Delta Force guys. And I picked it apart and showed you why that could not be Delta Force. And the biggest tell was the fact, yeah, there's the picture, except you got to show the bottom. I don't know if you can see it's zoomed in for some reason. But yeah, number one, Delta Force doesn't wear uniforms like this. Number two, they don't ever, ever, ever wear patches. Number three, Delta Force guys pretty much all have facial hair. These guys don't. And number four, the bottom right-hand corner of this photograph, which is cut off on the screen right now, shows the trademark of Gemini AI, which shows that it was artificially intelligence generated photo. So that's why. Okay. All right. Keep going. Wait. You should not be giving your political views, just report the news. How about I do what I want on my channel and you do what you want on your channel? If I want to give my political views, if I want to give my religious views, this is my channel. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Real easy. There you go. Next. Do we know where the uranium is? Most of it, any of it? Did they take out the stuff that was bombed? Short answer, probably yes in general terms, but not with total certainty right now. So intelligence agencies likely know likely locations, but they can't say with absolute confidence exactly where every kilogram of the uranium is at this moment. So most of it was believed to have been stored at or near one of three major nuclear sites in Iran: Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordo. And those facilities stored that stuff because they were heavily fortified, deep underground, and hard to destroy. So we have probable locations, but not actual locations. That's the best we can do on that. Okay. Even if we eradicate this regime and the Iranian people are able to bring about a more democratic government, won't China and Russia continue to finance jihadists wherever they are? Likely so. Likely so. All right. Is that our last question? Okay. Looks like it is. Thank you very much for being a part of the Hot Zone. You can get your own Hot Zone merch, like this Hot Zone t-shirt I'm wearing, by going to the Hot Zone store at holtonnewsstore.com. And there are hats and mugs and t-shirts and stuff for men and stuff for women there. So go get it. All right. God bless you. Thank you very much for watching the Hot Zone. Don't forget our upcoming camp or field leadership course, we're calling it. That's going to be taking place in August in West Virginia, led by myself and a great cadre of veterans and highly qualified people. Take young men, ages 13 to 17, and turn them into productive members of society and real men, all in 1 week's time. So that's a big ask for us. But if you have any sons or grandsons, we do have a few slots left on that. You can go to frontierforge.org and find out more. All right. We'll see you next time. Take care.